Hey folks, Jason Heath here with Contrabass Conversations, and today we are rebroadcasting our music school audition advice that is timely info for this time of year for so many people that listen to this. This idea came from Jack Unzicker from the University of Texas at Arlington. Love it, love it, love it. And this episode consists of several questions posed to many music school faculty members by, at that point, when this was recorded, a high school senior named Baylee Brown. She's now a freshman at Boston University. So thank you, Baylee. Thank you, Jack. And I really hope you find this valuable.
Hello, this is Timothy Cobb from the Neo-Philharmonic in Juilliard.
This is Paul Ellison. I teach at the Shepherd School of Music, which is at Rice University in Houston.
This is Diana Gannett, and I've recently retired from the University of Michigan.
This is Chris Hanulik calling from UCLA.
This is Lee Mesh. I'm the double bass professor at Bard College in lovely Hudson Valley, New York, and I'm the associate principal bass of the Met Opera Orchestra.
This is Jeff Bradetich, bass professor at the University of North Texas College of Music.
This is James Vandermark, professor of double bass at the Eastman School of Music.
This is Gaelen McCormick from Nazareth College in Rochester, New York.
This is Scott Pingle, principal bass of the San Francisco Symphony and faculty of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
This is Nicholas Walker from Ithaca College.
This is Brian Perry from Meadows School of the Arts at SMU in Dallas, Texas.
This is Caitlyn Kamminga. I teach at the UTT Academy for the Performing Arts in Trinidad and Tobago.
This is Dr. Adam Book from Appalachian State University.
This is Caroline Rotaro at Arizona State University.
This is Daxun Zhang of the University of Texas at Austin.
This is Andrew Rossetti calling from Northwestern University.
This is John Shimmick. I'm professor of double bass at Oklahoma City University.
This is Donovan Stokes from Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia.
This is Douglas Mapp from Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey.
This is Andy Anderson, and I teach in Chicago at the Chicago College of Performing Arts.
This is Susan Cahill from the University of Denver's Lamont School of Music.
This is George Amorim at UT Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh, Texas.
This is Volkan Orhun from the University of Iowa School of Music.
This is Tracy Rowell from Oberlin Conservatory.
This is Kieran Hanlon, professor of double bass and jazz at the State University of New York at Fredonia.
This is John Floeter, and I'm the instructor of double bass at Northern Illinois University.
As you can hear, this is not a normal episode for the podcast. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are featuring advice from all those folks that you heard in the intro there. And they're giving advice to a student named Baylee Brown. Now, Baylee is currently a senior in Texas. She's a bass student studying with Gudrun Raschen, who teaches a ton of bass players in the Dallas area. Wonderful teacher. And Baylee had some questions in general about auditioning for schools, as people typically do. And Jack Unzicker, who teaches at University of Texas at Arlington, he's a past podcast guest. Jack had this idea that I just totally love, which is let's have Baylee ask her questions and send those questions out to a few dozen bass faculty from around the country. And we'll have people from big schools and smaller schools and conservatories and universities answer Baylee's questions. So that is what you're hearing today, and I really hope you enjoy this. Contrabass Conversations is sponsored by D'Addario Strings, Colstein Music, Upton Bass, The Bass Violin Shop, and Steve Swan String Bass. More on them later on in the episode, but let's get into today's deep dive on college music school auditions.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of attending a conservatory versus university?
Hi, Baylee. This is James Vandermark, professor of double bass at the Eastman School of Music. Some of the distinctions between studying at a conservatory versus a university, in the United States anyway, are less evident now than in the past. Most conservatories have some affiliation with a nearby university to enable students to take some academic coursework, if they choose to, and some universities have as rich a performing experience for their students as any conservatory. See which specific environment and, above all, teacher and studio suit you best.
Well, hello, Baylee. This is Diana Gannett, and I've recently retired from the University of Michigan. I've also taught at a lot of other schools like the University of Iowa, Hart School of Music, Yale University, Oberlin Conservatory, and a few others along the way. So I've gleaned a lot of experience at various institutions, and I'd like to share a few thoughts about advantages I've seen in each of these. So it's basically conservatory versus university. Now, if you're attracted to a conservatory such as Juilliard, you can plan on spending a lot of time practicing, or you should plan on spending all your time practicing. And also maximizing your contact with notable faculty, and you'll have amazing peers, and they'll provide an incredible resource throughout your whole career. And just having the name of a prestige institution on your resume can be a lifelong career boost. However, you may find that there's a lot of competition for leadership positions and for experiences in various forms of music and in various groups. If you thrive on competition, this is a good place to go. If you find that a bit daunting or stifling, then you might have to consider some other things, because it's not always the most nurturing environment. And the key word is competition. Now, in a university, there is more opportunity for cooperation and creativity. However, you'll have a lot of coursework, and it's great for broadening your horizons intellectually, but it may also limit your practice time. Now, while you're at the university, you may have more leadership opportunities and a diversity of playing experiences, because you may be one of the more outstanding students. So while you're at the university, maximize your achievements both musically and intellectually. Then you can use your summertime to really hone in on practicing either individually or at a festival program. There are schools that are more of a combination, like Michigan or Indiana. And in addition to what I already said about it, you may consider that a school like this, if you have some talents intellectually also, because you could do a double degree program, and a lot of people find that very advantageous, both career-wise and just personally. Now, there's also a mix and match option, especially if money is kind of limited. Think about going to a very affordable undergraduate school like a university that may have a good teacher that you really like. Then do your crazy achievement there, get a lot of playing experience in different groups and genres, and then select summer programs that will expose you to potential graduate programs that have high profile. And very often then, if you go to a more expensive graduate school, they may also give you a lot of financial help if that's a consideration.
Hi, Baylee. This is Kieran Hanlon, professor of double bass and jazz at the State University of New York at Fredonia. I think you have to ask yourself what you really want for your college experience. You know, some people are going to be more comfortable with a university setting, something that's perhaps a little bit more well-rounded in experiences. You'll have your kind of football games and that kind of thing going on, more of a campus life idea. With a conservatory, you might be, in a sort of downtown landscape, very intense schedule, very intense expectations. And I think you just need to think about those two options and what's going to work better for your sort of long-term goals. I would say if you're going to go to a university, do a lot of research and make sure the standards are high. I was very lucky to go to the University of Michigan for undergrad, which had a beautiful, obviously, sort of campus environment, the real Big Ten feeling, met all kinds of people from all kinds of places. But it also had a music school that had super high standards and really, really sort of demanding expectations, which is really crucial if you want to do it professionally, as you could imagine. If you're going to think about a conservatory, it's a more intensive experience, as I said. It's important that alongside that, you make sure that it's a healthy and supportive environment. You can do some research, talk to the bass players that are there. or for those of you who are listening to this that may not be bass players, just get to know some folks that are in the studio, and really find out what it's really like. All of us, the brochure will not always reflect, what it's really like, really in any advertisement, any job, right? So I think it's really important to get on the campus, to meet people that have done it, and then again with the conservatory, you really want to make sure that you're up for that kind of intensity and that kind of challenge, because it can be a stressful place, which is a good thing. It's a really good thing. You just need to make sure that that's what you want, and then you'll be very happy if so.
Hi, Baylee. This is Volkan Orhun from the University of Iowa School of Music. Well, I had my training only in conservatories, first in Ankara, Turkey, and followed by art school in Connecticut. I came to U.S. for grad work in Connecticut. So I have to say that there's definitely an advantage of being with many high-level players to be always motivating. Then again, I have been teaching at the University of Iowa for about 16 years, and being in the university setting has been very helpful to my students that are exposed in many fields other than music for their intellectual and general growth as an individual.
Hi, Baylee. This is Tracy Rowell from Oberlin Conservatory. The Oberlin experience combines elements of both conservatory and university worlds. The conservatory is separate from the college, but the two can combine for lots of options. You can choose to completely focus on music in the conservatory or add non-music electives in the college. There is also a great 5-year double degree program. A college differs from a university in that there are no graduate students. Therefore, there are many leadership positions for undergraduate students on campus, such as principal positions, which might otherwise have gone to a grad student.
How many schools should I audition for?
Hi, Baylee. This is Scott Pingle, principal bass of the San Francisco Symphony and faculty of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. In answer to your question about how many schools for which you should consider auditioning, I recommend not necessarily doing it by the number, but by which schools you're interested in the most. I myself only auditioned for one school for my undergrad degree, the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and only one school for my graduate degree, the Manhattan School of Music, because those were at the time the only schools to which I was really interested in attending. However, this was during a time when the efficiency and I guess the efficacy of auditioning by video recording was not what it is today. Auditioning live is always better, for it allows you to personally experience the school environment, get a feel for the city, get a lesson with the teacher or teachers, meet other students, and more, but is also much more expensive, especially if you were bringing your own instrument. So I guess my advice on that is perhaps the wiser approach might be to figure out which are your top 2, 3, or maybe even 4 schools, what your budget is for auditioning and traveling, and then determine how many you can attend live. If attending all of them is not feasible, look into auditioning by video or attending a remote audition run by the schools that are lower on your priority list. I know the San Francisco Conservatory travels to various locations around the U.S. and Asia for such remote locations, and I'm sure other schools do as well.
Hi, Baylee. This is Lee Mesh. I'm the double bass professor at Bard College in lovely Hudson Valley, New York. How many schools should I audition for? That's a really easy question. I think you should audition for as many schools as you possibly can. Then you have more options. Also, the art of auditioning is tough, and it becomes easier the more you do.
Hello, Baylee. This is Andrew Rossetti calling from Northwestern University. Just talking to you a little bit about how many schools you might want to apply for. I would suggest you talk, above all else, you speak with your teacher about this and get their advice. Make a list of all the schools that pique your interest and make a list of the places that really excite you, where you'd really like to end up. And with the help of your teacher and your parents, that will help you winnow down exactly how many schools you want to apply to.
Hello, Baylee. This is Donovan Stokes from Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia. How many schools should I audition for? We always tell people a minimum of 3. One that would be your absolute dream school, one that you
might not be your dream school, but it's still a really great place that you believe that you can prosper and thrive at, and then another that would be sort of a backup school, hopefully something that you would be pleased with, but something maybe with a little bit easier admissions rate. That would be a minimum. I'd say no more than maybe 7. That's an awful lot to try and prepare during an audition season, even if the material overlaps.
This is Dr. Adam Book from Appalachian State University. I typically give the advice of no less than 3 and no more than 5. Definitely put your dream schools in there. Don't discount the state schools, because there's lots of fine instructors that you can find at state schools, a little bit cheaper too sometimes, or let's just say more cost effective. So no less than 3, no more than 5. Sometimes these schools carry a lot of, they have like audition, entrance fees, things like that. And you have to spend a lot of time making videos for some of these places. So you don't want to overdo it. I know you're trying to get done with high school and everything, and you have enough other things on your plate.
Hi, Baylee. This is Andy Anderson, and I teach in Chicago at the Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt University in downtown Chicago. I also teach at Wheaton College in Wheaton, Illinois. What I think you need to know when you're applying for college, I think that you should know what you're aiming at. You should know what your goal is so that you can select institutions where people have done what you're wanting to do. How many colleges should you apply to? You should apply to at least the top 3 or 4 in the field that you're wanting to do. You should choose schools that have faculty that you respect, admire, or at least get along with, which you won't know unless you go take a lesson with them, which I definitely think you should. The right way to do that is usually by email, or if you can get the phone number, you can call them and leave a message asking for one.
Hi, Baylee. This is John Floeter, and I'm the instructor of double bass at Northern Illinois University. I'm also on the faculty at University of Illinois at Chicago and Roosevelt University, also in Chicago. You asked, how many schools should you apply for? And I would say the short answer is somewhere between about 3 and 6. At least 3, but more if you have time. The audition season is pretty limited, and there's only so many places you can get to on the weekends you have free to get to all the auditions that you want to do. Now, the real question is, depending on whether you are a performance major, an education major, a classical major, a jazz major, you should be looking for the combination of the school and the teacher that fit your needs. Now, I teach at 3 different schools with 3 different profiles, and NIU is an isolated school out in DeKalb, Illinois, although it is about an hour drive into the city. But it's very different than the feeling of at UIC and Roosevelt, which are right in the heart of Chicago. Now, there's a certain amount of excitement in the city, but there's also a certain amount of expense. And also, each of these schools are very different in what needs they address best in terms of education or performance. So those are the sort of things that you want to see about the school as well as the teacher. Now, the state schools are cheaper, and Illinois schools are now offering in-state tuition to out-of-state students, so that's something to consider. There are a lot of career options out there for musicians, and Barry Colstein of Colstein Music has some great advice about keeping your options open.
I generally will tell anybody that goes off to, going as performance, go after your dreams, but also prepare yourself, because it's not always the easiest profession to pursue. And I'm a firm believer that in life you pick up as much knowledge as you can. Those are your armament in life, and you put them in your back pocket. You may never have to draw upon it, but it's a nice thing to have.
Colstein & Sons, for 70 years now, has been working to connect bass players with the finest instruments and help them achieve their goals and find those opportunities in their lives. Thank you so much to Barry and everybody at Colstein Music for sponsoring the podcast. What is an American style of bass? Here's Gary and Eric from Upton Bass on the topic.
So there's a joke about American instruments, all right? If I can take 4 violins and go to, let's say, a top-notch violin appraiser, and he can take the first one out and look at it and go, well, this one's clearly Italian because of all these features. Next one, this is French because of all these features. Next one, this is English because of these features. 4th violin, they can't tell what it is, and then they go, it's American. It's got a little bit of everything.
Learn more about their Bostonian, American-style model and so many other things that they have to offer you at uptonbase.com. And thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast.
Hi, my name is Andres Martin. I'm an Argentinian composer and double bass player living in Tijuana, Mexico. I play in a professional orchestra, also teaching and performing as a soloist in festivals around the world. After trying almost every string set in the market for the last 20 years, I found Kaplan string to be the only ones that can allow me to use all the different colors and techniques I've been working at during my entire career. I use both solo and orchestral sets, and I love the tone, tension, thickness, and the wide range of dynamics and harmonic resonance and timbre I can get with them. For me, they have the perfect balance between thickness and flexibility, making them a true pleasure under my fingers and bow. I'm happy that finally I have a set that makes me happy when I have to play in any situation.
What are some common preparation mistakes that you see auditioning students making?
Hello, this is Timothy Cobb from the New York Philharmonic, Juilliard. Hello, Baylee. And rather than citing any common thread of mistake, I think I would answer the question by saying, for me, I'm looking for potential as well as ability. I think most teachers would agree to some extent. Therefore, intonation, rhythm, good tone. Of course, it's always amazing to hear a student whip off some incredibly high level of technique. It's equally impressive just to hear a fine Kuzovitsky concerto or some other standard piece with really good intonation and very solid rhythm and good musical feel. So I would practice towards those ends. Same with your Bach. Doesn't have to be the most difficult piece in the repertoire, but should be very well in tune and show good, diligent practice. It's late on the pre-screening already, but I do see quite a wacky variety of presentation in tapes. Not so much live, but you see anything from workout clothes up to a nice, serious professional presentation, and I would highly recommend the latter. So if you take a minute to look nice, and I'm saying this to all students, look professional, look serious, check your tapes to make sure you're not too close to the mic and that the sound quality is going to be nice to listen to.
Hi, Baylee. This is Chris Hanulik calling from UCLA. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of advice about some of the questions you posed here. The most common preparation mistake that I see with students that are auditioning revolves around how quickly they try to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour on the material that they're preparing. The most important thing that you can do in terms of your preparation is making sure that you first go over everything very slowly. You've got to give your muscle memory a chance to kick in. You've got to memorize where your left hand needs to be on the neck and how that coordinates with the right hand. You've got to make sure that the coordination between the left and right hand is absolutely clean and pure. And that comes with slow, methodical repetitions. You've got to go slow to go fast, in other words. Sometimes that leads to issues if a passage you're working on involves spiccato at a slow tempo. Obviously, your spiccato stroke is not going to be the same as when you take a particular passage up to tempo. Nevertheless, try to go through all of your material slowly first and gradually move up to tempo. And it's also important that at the slow tempo that you're not just thinking about technique, but you're also incorporating those elements that you're going to use at the brighter tempo. So in other words, dynamics, phrasing, all of that you should be incorporating at the slower tempo, but at a slow tempo. Really, really important. Once you establish all of that and get your coordination between your left and right hand worked out at a slow tempo, then you can gradually increase the tempo to your performance, whatever your performance tempo is going to be, and you should be in good shape in doing that.
This is Brian Perry from Meadows School of the Arts at SMU in Dallas, Texas. Other question you had was about common mistakes that you see students making, and in this regard, I think what typically happens is students tend to want to play pieces that are far too new to them. If they're learning something going into senior year, unless they've had a chance to really get it out and perform it quite a bit, it tends to be something that maybe they just haven't had enough experience with, and so when nerves creep in, things can happen. So I would tend to err on the side of preparing early, getting as many performances in ahead of time as you can, and also choosing repertoire that maybe if you've played it 10 times, giving it that extra go for the college auditions might be the best route, just simply because it's familiar to you and not something super new. So that would hopefully give you the most confidence in your auditions.
Hi, Baylee. This is Daxun Zhang of the University of Texas at Austin. I'm here to answer some of your questions. One of your questions is, what are some common preparation mistakes that you see auditioning students making? Well, I think one of the most common mistakes that I see when preparing for an audition is choose repertoire that are too difficult for their current level. I'd rather hear something not too difficult, but played well with all the details, than very difficult pieces that are done poorly.
This is Caroline Rotaro at Arizona State University. What are some of the common preparation mistakes? Well, again, it's a very broad question, and there is a plethora of answers to this, but I'm just going to give you, perhaps from my perspective, the most important mistake which I've seen students make, and that is, don't try to put in your mouth more than you can chew. I don't expect you to play Brahms piano concerto on bass or anything. So basically, whatever you choose to play, make sure it represents yourself. It shows off the best that you have to offer at this moment. I personally prefer if you just, play something easier, but do it very well, especially intonation and rhythm. And of course, show your dedication and motivation to become a professional bass player.
This is Donovan Stokes from Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia. What are some common preparation mistakes? The two most common are people aren't ready early enough. They're still working on their material in the final weeks coming up to the audition season. And the second is that they choose material that may be actually too hard for them technically, and they think that it will be impressive. It's much more impressive to play something well within your technical skill level at a very, very high level than it is to play something moderately poorly that is beyond you. So if you are not ready for a Paganini Caprice, don't attempt one for audition season.
This is George Amorim at UT Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh, Texas. In my experience, I noticed that students often overprogram. They choose repertoire above the technical and musical abilities, hoping to impress rather than playing really well what shows off their best qualities. In auditions, professors hope to get an idea of how good a student you will be, and displaying good decision-making brings in lots of extra points. Another common occurrence is actually not in the musical preparation, but oftentimes students fail to contact the professor whom they are auditioning for. For a consultation lesson, or they fail to research the university, the community, and what campus life would be like. But you got to remember that you are also auditioning each school.
Besides the bass teacher, what other factors should I consider when comparing schools?
Hello, Baylee. This is Nicholas Walker from Ithaca College, and I'm calling to answer the question, aside from the bass teacher, what other factors should you consider when comparing schools? And what I would say is you should go to the school. You should go and see what it's like when classes are in session, when the energy is popping and everyone is doing their thing. You should hang out with the students, have lunch with them, sit in on another lesson, watch how they talk and how they interact, and get a sense of how it feels to be there. It's kind of like online dating versus real life dating. Somebody's online profile is probably can say all kinds of things, but it really comes down to how does it feel to be in the room with that person. And you might be surprised. The schools that should be the right fit, you might not feel like they get you and that's where you belong. And another school might feel like, hey, this is the place for me. I can be me and they can be they, and we fit perfectly together. I always feel like when it works its best, it's not about choices and comparisons and tables. It's just the right fit on both sides of the equation, for the school, for the teacher, for the applicant, for the rest of the studio. And it just all feels right. And then the question is, how can it happen financially, and, logistically, and all of the other little things? But get yourself there and open up and ask questions and make connections.
Hi, Baylee. This is Caitlyn Kamminga. I teach at the UTT Academy for the Performing Arts in Trinidad and Tobago. When my students are comparing schools, I ask them two things. Will it support your dream, and can you afford to go there? The first question requires taking the time to identify your personal passions and dreams, which may differ from those that your teacher or your parents have outlined for you. Do you want to play in an orchestra, or do you want to play jazz? Or maybe you want to do both like Rob Cassinger does. Or maybe you want to play a variety of different genres and write your own music like Sébastien Dubé does. Your job is to identify the dream, and it will be your teacher's job to help you gain the skill sets to attempt to reach that dream. Can you afford to go there is the second question. My students in Trinidad quite often don't realize how expensive it is to study abroad, and so whilst their family might have enough to pay tuition, they haven't realized how much it costs to live or how much transport will cost. After investing all that time learning your craft, you don't want an enormous debt that will keep you from realizing your dream. My dreams have always been multifaceted, and I was really lucky to have teachers that supported that.
Hi, Baylee. This is Caroline Rotaro at Arizona State University. I'm going to very, very briefly answer your questions. And, of course, it's very likely I will miss probably some of the correct answers, but anyway, I'll give you a ballpark answer to each and every one of your questions. So, bass teacher, what else should you consider comparing schools? I guess you're going to hear this from everybody, but the quality of the program in general. So, how good the orchestra program is, everything, all the music classes you're going to take, but also take into account the environment, and perhaps also the opportunities to gig. Why not? Actually, as you keep growing, developing, that's going to be more and more important. But in the end, perhaps the teacher is the deciding factor. That's what I would do at least.
Hi, Baylee. This is Susan Cahill from the University of Denver's Lamont School of Music. And naturally, the bass teacher is one of the most important decisions. It's a one-on-one dynamic, and it's very atypical of anything else that's going to happen with you in your college career. Of course, you already know this if you've been studying bass. So it's really important that that's a good fit. And something that goes along with that people don't often think about is what else happens with that dynamic with the bass teacher, for instance. Will the bass teacher help you line up gigs in town? Will the bass teacher encourage you from doing extra gigs? Or will they discourage you if you've taken on too much? And then another big thing that people often don't think about, can the bass teacher help you fill in any gaps that either you come into the school with or that the school isn't quite helping you with? Like, for instance, ear training is a big one that I run into a lot. Will the bass teacher help really get your ear training grounded? So I think those are some things to consider just about the teacher. And then after that, I think what's important is to make a list of other learning goals for yourself aside from your bass studio work. And after you've made that list, then you can figure out whether the school is a better fit. It's hard to know if a school fits your objectives if you don't know what your objectives are. So, for instance, does the school permit experimentation in the degree easily? Like, can you easily take a philosophy course or a math course if that's what you're interested in? And then one of the other good things to consider is how the other students in the bass studio how do they align with your objectives? Or how do they complement it if it's not an exact alignment? For instance, is it all orchestra players, but you're really only interested in soloing? Or is it all orchestra players, but you want to learn more about playing in the orchestra because you've only done solos? So that's another important thing to discover. Another thing is, what are the graduates doing, and do you see yourself doing that? And then a last thing that a lot of students don't think about a school, aside from the teacher, is, are there any big changes coming to the curriculum or to the focus of the school? And that's a little bit harder to find out, but you can kind of dig around, especially if you really quiz the admissions director, and you can kind of get an idea of some things that might be coming that may fit you better or may fit you not as well.
Other than performance, music ed, and jazz, what other options are available for undergrads?
Hi, Baylee. This is Gaelen McCormick from Nazareth College in Rochester, New York. Considering your question about other degree majors besides music performance, music ed, and jazz, one of the things we do at Nazareth College really well that I think not a lot of people consider is music therapy. And that's a degree and a job where you go out and you work in a therapeutic environment. So like an occupational therapist will work with people who have physical limitations that they're trying to overcome or rehab that they're trying to do. A music therapist will work with someone who is also trying to overcome or rehab using music as the tool. So it's an absolutely therapeutic mode of working. So you're working in a social work type of way. You're using music as the tool. So you're still in the conservatory program. You're still working in orchestra. You're taking lessons, and you're working through the creative arts therapy program. So it's a really great fit for somebody who wants to do therapeutic work, who has that kind of angle in their life where they want to do that. And a book that I recommend to a lot of people who are thinking about going in that direction is called Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks. It covers a lot of different really interesting things that can go wrong with our brains when it comes to art and music. And there's a few chapters in there on music therapy in particular that are really enlightening about the ways that music can reawaken our brains after a stroke, for instance, and after certain diseases hit like Parkinson's. And I've just found it really inspiring. I've got several students that have come through this program, and they're making a tremendous difference in the world.
Hi, Baylee. This is Douglas Mapp from Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey. I'd like to offer you some thoughts on courses of study at the college level for the musician. Most younger musicians fall into three large categories: classical by playing in their high school orchestra, wind ensemble, concert band, marching band, or youth orchestra; jazz by playing in studio band, jazz band, or studio orchestra; and rock or popular music. The traditional programs that support these at the college level are classical performance, jazz performance, and music education. There are a number of other courses of study that students sometimes only find out about once they arrive on campus or after doing a little bit of research. Many schools now offer some of the following courses of study either separately or as parts of larger degree programs: theory, composition, commercial music, music business, music technology, music therapy. This last option is currently a growth field with more jobs than applicants. It also encompasses much more than what most of us think of when we think of music therapy. I hope this gives you a little bit of food for thought, and I wish you all the best as you move on to the next step of your musical journey.
Hi, Baylee. This is Tracy Rowell from Oberlin Conservatory. Beyond traditional degrees such as performance, there are some really cool options. Oberlin's historical performance program is among the best, and many bassists have played in the Baroque orchestra or even learned to play viola da gamba. The PI program, or performance and improvisation, exists in the space between classical and jazz. Every January, we have winter term, an independent study term where it's possible to dig deep into a subject, study, travel, the sky's the limit.
Hi, Baylee. This is John Shimmick. I'm professor of double bass at Oklahoma City University, where you came for one of my summer bass camps. And I was told that you had a couple of questions that you'd like some help with. And one of them was, what other areas of music are there besides performance, music ed, and jazz that undergraduates could study? Well, certainly there's composition, but there's also music business, which could be either administrative or retail. And some schools, like our school, we offer a Bachelor of Arts in Music with the emphasis being in pre-law, or the Bachelor of Arts in Music with the emphasis being in pre-med, if you wanted to be a medical doctor, or a Bachelor of Arts in Music with the emphasis in pre-engineering. So you would be a music major, but take your electives in those areas. Some schools even offer a music therapy degree where you would work with either special needs students or retirees or people in hospitals. So there's lots of opportunities for you to continue your music career.
Hi, Baylee. This is Volkan Orhon from the University of Iowa School of Music. Other than performance and music ed and jazz, we have actually a couple of very strong degree programs in composition and music therapy, which are one of the top-ranked programs actually in the country, outside of those performance, music ed, and jazz degrees. Although it's not a degree outside of our regular bass ensembles class that I run, we have a very exciting chamber music program here at UI that started about 4 years or so. It is the University of Iowa String Quartet Residency Program. This unique residency program brings in nationally recognized string quartets, specifically for 7 to 10-day residencies each year. During this time, the quartets work with the foreign student chamber groups, give public performances and master classes and seminars on how to build a career with entrepreneurial ideas. The students get to work also closely with these quartets in master classes, coachings, and even sometimes individual lessons. Recent quartets we had on campus include Shara Quartet, Jupiter and Pacifica Quartets, Kawani Quartet. Now this semester we're also scheduled to have the Elias and Cecilia Quartets for residencies. It is a very exciting program and we're really proud of it.
Hi, Baylee. This is Kieran Hanlon, professor of double bass and jazz at the State University of New York at Fredonia. Other than performance, music ed, and jazz, some of the more well-known degrees, what other kinds of degrees might you have in a college program? So here at Fredonia, we have a number of other programs. We have 2 different Bachelor of Science degrees. One of those is sound recording technology, which of course includes many things: studio work, live streaming, live sound, running the soundboard, that kind of stuff, all kinds of training along those lines. And then, let's see, we have also music therapy, which is a really wonderful degree program working with people that have disabilities, using music to improve the quality of their lives or help them make adjustments and sort of make progress in their healing. We have a Bachelor of Arts degree in applied music, which is an interesting degree. It's very, very well-rounded. It has a whole lot of what we call here is college core curriculum, CCC credits, basically, your sort of humanities in addition to the core music curriculum. That's a good degree if you're interested in music, but also have other academic interests. Then, of course, I have a Bachelor of Music degree in composition, so writing music, right?
This episode is brought to you by the Bass Violin Shop, which opened in 2001 as a small double bass workshop in Greensboro, North Carolina. Today, they're staffed by 3 full-time, highly skilled bass luthiers, and they specialize in double bass sales, rentals, setup, restoration, and repair. For nearly 20 years, they have satisfied thousands of clients by offering quality instruments, knowledgeable service, reliable repairs, and superior restorations at affordable prices. Did you know that they regularly ship basses nationally from coast to coast? Contact their team to find out more information about the shipping process and how you can get your dream bass delivered to your doorstep. For more information and current inventory, visit their website at bassviolinshop.com and be sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram. This episode is brought to you by Steve Swan String Bass, which is home to the largest collection of double basses on the West Coast between Los Angeles and Canada. That's a lot of miles, folks. Steve's showroom is outstanding, absolutely worth a visit. It's located just south of San Francisco Airport, SFO, and he has about 70 basses on display. And these basses range from student entry-level instruments all the way to the finest professional instruments. I've sent so many students and referred so many people to Steve's shop. He really does great work. And if you're looking for a bass, you're going to find one that suits your needs, your playing needs, and your budgetary needs for sure. SteveSwanStringBass.com is where you can go. And thank you, Steve, for sponsoring the podcast.
How early should students start preparing for their college auditions?
This is Daxin Zhang of the University of Texas at Austin. How early should students start preparing for their college auditions? Well, I think it really depends on the learning speed of the student. But in general, if I were to learn something new, I would give enough time so that I can intensively learn and work on the piece until I get tired of practicing it or even hearing it. And then I would leave it and don't touch it for some time and work on something else. And then I will come back to it again with a fresh mind and ears and practice intensively until the performance. So this will be my suggestions.
I'm interested in auditioning at 6 schools. Is there any flexibility in audition requirements that could help lessen the amount of combined repertoire for all the schools?
Hi, Baylee. This is Jeff Bradetich, bass professor at the University of North Texas College of Music. And I'd love to talk to you about your questions about preparing for an audition. I think my advice is always that you should play what you do best. I realize some schools have very specific requirements in repertoire. But regarding Bach, some schools, if they require Bach, then obviously you have to do the very best you can with it. But as an undergraduate especially, I would advise you not to play Bach unless you can absolutely play it at the absolutely highest level, because you're playing usually for the cello professors and the viola professors and the violin professors who have all studied Bach. And what I hear a common problem in bass players when they play Bach in their college auditions is they actually play wrong notes. And they play the chords in ways that the cellists and the violists and the violinists would never dream of playing chords. And so the immediate response from the people listening to you audition is, oh, this person hasn't studied it. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. It's a real negative. So unless you've really perfected the Bach, then I would leave it out if you have the choice.
This is James Vandermark, professor of double bass at the Eastman School of Music. There can be some flexibility in audition requirements at individual schools, although it's usually recommended that the applicant adhere fairly closely to the published guidelines. Nonetheless, if a student is looking for some flexibility in the audition repertoire, I'd check in with the individual teacher at the school in question far in advance of the actual audition date. As you can imagine, it's not in an applicant's best interest to announce repertoire changes at the actual audition.
Hi, Baylee. This is Brian Perry from Meadows School of the Arts at SMU in Dallas, Texas. You had a question about audition requirements for schools and how to go about lessening the amount of combined repertoire. My advice, if you can't fulfill all the requirements, would be to try to find rep that has the most contrast that you can. For instance, like a romantic concerto and a Baroque sonata for your solos, if you can put together that kind of thing. And then when it comes to a few excerpts, that also can show some contrast. If you can put together 3 or so contrasting excerpts, generally that will keep you fairly covered. Examples of that would be like a Beethoven excerpt and a Mozart excerpt, and then a lyrical excerpt, maybe like the solo from Mahler 1 or Verdi's Otello are fairly popular choices. And so what you want to do is you just want to try to show as much a command of style and different articulations with the bow and things like that. I think that's the biggest goal.
This is Scott Pingle, principal bass of the San Francisco Symphony and faculty of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. Now, it's wonderful, of course, when there's a lot of crossover between schools, but that is not always the case. Sometimes a school will be flexible on some of the repertoire requirements, so don't hesitate to ask the teacher for whom you intend to audition. I get questions from students about that frequently, and I ask them what their repertoire would be, and I can either make suggestions or say that that's fine. Because, for instance, like if the requirement is a romantic concerto, yet the student has a romantic sonata of similar difficulty, I don't think it's unreasonable to substitute them. However, what is most important is that the school gets a representation of your technical and musical abilities, and that would also include, different styles.
How can I keep from getting overwhelmed by the audition repertoire requirements from all the different schools that I'm auditioning for?
This is Andrew Rossetti calling from Northwestern University. As far as trying to juggle all the different lists and demands of all the different auditions you might be taking, as often as you can, try to overlap the requirements. If one school specifies excerpts and another one says pick 3 excerpts, try to overlap those lists. And also, most importantly, I would suggest you keep a practice journal so that you never go too long without practicing any one thing. Be a good idea to set up a 2 or 3 day rotation and treat the list of requirements kind of like the buffet. Make numerous small trips to the buffet. Don't try to eat the whole thing every day.
This is John Shimmick. I'm professor of double bass at Oklahoma City University. And then the other question was, how can I keep from getting overwhelmed by the audition repertoire requirements? And my short answer to you is, always have fun. Have fun learning and playing this music and practicing this music. And then it's not a chore. Remember why you play the bass. It's for fun. And I also tell my high school students who are preparing auditions that during this practice time, which becomes very intense, take some time out just to play something for fun. Maybe even improvise something. And when I mean something for fun, I'm talking about maybe a pop tune that you're just going to play by ear, or sometimes a Christmas tune, or just something for fun, or maybe even a piece that you learned a long time ago, but you can play it really well. And that will break this intense practicing and worrying about how you're doing. So just have fun.
This is Scott Pingle, principal bass of the San Francisco Symphony and faculty of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. If you have a large repertoire load between different schools, I recommend also perhaps making a kind of A, B, and C list of your repertoire. The A list would be the material that you need to do every day. The B list is maybe every couple days, and the C list is maybe a couple of times a week, stuff that's maybe not as technically challenging. This is how I used to approach taking professional orchestra auditions that had very large repertoire requirements, and it just kept me on my everything on the front burner at some point over the course of the week, because that consistency is much more important than trying to cram.
This is Donovan Stokes from Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia. The next question you have is, how can I keep from getting overwhelmed by the audition repertoire? Well, hopefully some of it overlaps, and that's what I would try to do as much as possible. Otherwise, you need to prepare early. So if your audition is in February, I'd start working on it in September, actually, or earlier, so that you have as much of the audition material ready during that fall semester as possible. But again, I'd look for overlaps. If someone is not specific, if they say 2 contrasting pieces, but somebody else wants specifically the first movement of the Von Hall and a Bottesini Salon piece, then I would use that at multiple places.
How do I ask for a lesson with the teacher for whom I'm auditioning? Do I pay them or ask about payment?
This is Scott Pingle, principal bass of the San Francisco Symphony and faculty of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. I believe it is really important to get a lesson with the teacher before you decide on the school. For if your intent is to become a performance major, your primary teacher will be one of the most important parts of your training. As for paying for the lesson, that will be different for every teacher, but it might be prudent to at least offer to do so. As for myself, it's my policy to always give a free trial lesson to a student interested in studying at the school.
This is Dr. Adam Book from Appalachian State University. Email. Always the best way. A lot of teachers check their email incessantly. I know I'm one of them. You can also find the bass teacher's information on the school website. Don't be afraid to make a phone call. Most of us are pretty darn cool and really willing to talk to you and work with you. So email is a great way to do it, and just say, hey, I'm an interested student and I'd like to come and audition for your school. I go to such and such place and I would like to come up for a lesson. Now, the second part of that was, do I pay them or ask about payment? I don't think anybody minds getting asked about payment, and I think it's polite to ask, or it could be polite to ask, but I would have some serious red flags raised if a teacher at a university was demanding payment for an on-campus visit. I don't think that's kosher personally. That's my opinion. If it happens on campus, I haven't met a single colleague of mine yet in any instrument that wouldn't mind to say, come on in. My door's always open. We can do a lesson. We can chat. We can hang out. I'll show you around campus. I know I'm perfectly willing to roll out the red carpet for any prospective student, and pretty much every other teacher I know is as well. Also, a lot of schools offer student for a day programs. I know here at App State we offer a student for a day program where you can check in with the office, and the office will actually set you up throughout the day with meeting with this teacher, going to this class, observing this class or the other, observing lessons and ensemble rehearsals, and also, hanging out with students. We actually have that as part of the schedule too. You go to lunch with students. So a lot of schools offer things like that, a student for a day program. But yeah, any teacher worth his or her salt is going to have their door wide open and welcome you with open arms. Hopefully do a lesson. Don't go to school with anybody that you haven't taken a lesson from.
This is Andy Anderson. And I always ask if they want to, compensation for a lesson. It's always just a good idea to ask that. Say how much do you charge for a lesson? There's nothing wrong with that.
This is Donovan Stokes from Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia. So you're asking about how to ask a professor for a lesson. I would ask early on by email. Try and set up a time. Sometimes they will do it on the day of the audition. Other times it's too busy. You'll have to have a separate trip, maybe when you're visiting. And should you ask about payment? I would ask about payment because some people do not charge for that sort of thing, and then other people do, and you don't want to be surprised when you get there.
This is John Floeter, and I'm the instructor of double bass at Northern Illinois University. Now, you also asked when you ask for a lesson with a teacher, if you want to ask for a lesson with this teacher that you're auditioning for. And I would say absolutely. You want to know what kind of a teacher this is before you go down that road and spend 4 years studying with them. Should you ask them about payment? Yes, you should. Now, they may say, no, don't worry about that. And I will tell you that at NIU, we offer a free lesson to anyone who is applying there. So you wouldn't need to ask there. But anyone else, I would certainly ask if they want payment for the lesson. And even if it seems like it's a bit expensive, consider the cost that you'll be paying over 4 years or more studying with someone. So really, that's not a big deal in the scope of things.
I play the German bow. How important is it that I study with a German bow teacher?
Hi, Baylee. This is Paul Ellison, and I teach at the Shepherd School of Music, which is at Rice University in Houston. And I want to say, without any hesitation, that my finest teachers were those that were not German bow teachers. The way you hold your hand in your forearm and the way your fingers cradle the bow, that is what's important. And the way that you move your arm in reaction to the strings. Playing the bass is just like playing the other string instruments, and all of the same pedagogy that involves great string playing involves either the overhand bow or the underhand bow. Question the larger. Besides the bass teacher, well, that's a really tough way to start because that's the person that you're going to spend the most time with the entire time that you're in college, other than your friends. And the importance of that relationship cannot be emphasized sufficiently. You need to be able to relate with that person. You need to be comfortable with that person. And there are few things that are more important than that.
This is Jeff Bradetich, bass professor at the University of North Texas College of Music. Regarding your German bow question, yes, I think it's very important that a German bow player study with a teacher that is a good teacher of the German bow. In older bygone eras, it used to be the teacher was either French or German, and they didn't know the difference between the two. they would only teach the one and didn't branch out. Nowadays, a lot of teachers teach both. I think whether the teacher is a French or German player, if they understand the principles of the bow and how the bow works on the string, etc., you can learn a lot from them. Somewhere along the line, though, I think it's really important to study with a player of the German bow, especially to learn spiccato, which is it's kind of its own thing on German bow, very different than the French bow. And that can happen, of course, in shorter term periods, summer festivals, or in obviously in degree programs as well.
This is Chris Hanulik calling from UCLA. The other question I see here is the importance of studying with a German bow teacher because you play German bow. A good teacher is a good teacher, Baylee, and they will be able to guide you and develop your bow arm whether you play French or German. That's really just a matter of your personal preference. So I would not put any emphasis whatsoever on whether your primary teacher plays French or German, because a good teacher will be able to teach you both bows very well.
Hi, Baylee. This is Lee Mesh. I'm the double bass professor at Bard College in lovely Hudson Valley, New York, and I'm the associate principal bass of the Met Opera Orchestra. Hope you could hear this message because I'm calling you on my cell phone deep in the bowels of the Met Opera House. We have not the best service. In my opinion, if you're a German bow player, it's not imperative to go to a school to study with a German bow player. Find a good teacher that you have a good rapport with, and if he or she is a really good teacher, you will get a lot out of that teacher, whether they play German or French bow.
Hi, Baylee. This is George Amorim at UT Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh, Texas, and I hope to be able to offer you a good answer. I play the German bow. How important it is that I study with a German bow teacher. You know, I too was faced with a similar decision at some point in my training. I played the German bow, and 3 out of the 4 major teachers I studied with played the French bow. And I can tell you that I have no regrets for having chosen to study with them. In the U.S., there are many specific characteristics in the German bow playing, such as tone and articulation that comes straight out of hardcore American French bow playing, and from its epicenters, such as Philadelphia, Boston, New York, and Chicago. Lots of great stuff to incorporate into German bow playing. I do think that to help you making the right choice, I would encourage you to seek answers to 2 questions. The first being, how proficient are you executing a variety of strokes and articulations with the German bow? This is super important, as the more proficient you are, the easier it will be to understand instructions coming from a non-German bow perspective. The second question is, how would the person you would study with feel about teaching German bow? It is a perfect legitimate question that you should feel comfortable asking, as you do not want to put yourself in a situation down the road when you feel that you're not being helped sufficiently. I, as a German bow player, also teach French bow, but I do feel that often is the case that there's a bit of loss in translation when a student isn't as proficient on the French bow.
This is Carol Rotaro at Arizona State University. You play German bow. How important is it that I study with a German bow teacher? Well, it is, but you shouldn't make it a requirement, in my opinion. I myself am a German bow player, and I do have students playing both German and French. And the reason I'm saying this is nowadays you guys have access to technology and media online. So you can, even if your teacher is a French bow player, if you really, really like him or her, I would say go for it. Because I'm sure he or she will be able to give you a lot of the answers to your bowing technique questions in the end.
This is Diana Gannett, and I've recently retired from the University of Michigan. Now, let me say about German bow, I perform mostly on German bow, but I teach both. So I've actually demanded of myself that I have the same facility with both bows. Now, the principles are very much the same on either bow, so a teacher should be able to easily identify a student's any points of tension that a student may have that need attention. Should you end up studying with a French bow teacher, you might also consider spending some time learning French bow so that you can translate for yourself some of the principles that the teacher wants you to absorb. Also, consider just doing some summer study with somebody that does have a good German bow facility and sound that you admire. Most of all, I'd suggest working with a teacher that inspires you both musically and professionally. And if it's a German bow player, all the better. If not, find somebody good to work with during the summers.
We'll round out today's episode with some advice from Orrin O'Brien of the Manhattan School of Music and, of course, longtime bass section member at the New York Philharmonic. Here's what Orrin says. The best advice I can give about college auditions is this. It's not what you play that counts, it's how you play. When Eugene Levins and I were co-chairs of the Juilliard bass department, we decided that the best choice for a solo for a freshman would be 2 contrasting movements from a Baroque sonata, Marcello, Vivaldi, Telemann, etc. This would be a good way to show your ability to play in tune, rhythmically, with good tone quality and an appropriate musical style. Most freshmen have not studied long enough to be comfortable with one of our concerti. Other schools sometimes ask for a concerto, but unless a bassist has studied with a good teacher from the age of 10, the chances are that it will not be played adequately. So concentrate on simple repertoire played well. Choose an etude you like and listen to an excellent recording of your chosen orchestral excerpt. Or attend a live concert so you can see how the bass section is performing your excerpt. Most teachers I know are shocked when a student attempts to play an excerpt without having ever listened to the complete piece. There you have it, our questions asked by Baylee Brown and answered by all these wonderful faculty members. And thank you, Jack Unzicker, for the great idea. What a cool idea. I had no idea whether this would come together at all. It's one of those fantastically complex projects that I just totally love, and I really hope you enjoyed this, whether you're a bass player or not. Hopefully you got something out of this, and I would love to hear from you. Reach out, feedback@contrabassconversations.com. Let me know what you thought of this. Would you like to hear more projects like this? Would you like to hear something kind of in a similar vein, but a little different? Let me know. I shape this show, like I did today, based on what people want to hear. Jack had this great idea. That's what we did. People kept talking about auditioning a couple years ago. I went into the Winning the Audition series, and I have many other projects up my sleeve, but I would love to get your feedback and your input. And you can follow along with what we're doing here each and every week at our website, contrabassconversations.com. And if you're not on our email list, you can join at our website, and we can continue the conversation, as I like to say, between these episodes. We have a wonderful production team here at Contrabass Conversations. Michael Cooper and Steve Hinchy are our audio editors. Mitch Mooring is our audio engineer, and publication and promotion is done by Trevor Jones. I'm your host, Jason Heath, coming to you from San Francisco, California, a city that I totally dig. And we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.
Good luck, Baylee.
Good luck, Baylee. Break a leg.
Good luck, Baylee, and I hope it goes well, and look forward to seeing you out there sometime soon.
Good luck, Baylee. Keep up the work, and I hope we hear more from you.
Good luck, Baylee.
Best of luck, Baylee.
Good luck. Take care, Baylee.
Best of luck to you in all of your auditions, Baylee.
Good luck, and I hope it all goes well for you.
Best wishes and good luck. Good luck, Baylee.
Good luck, Baylee.
Good luck on all your searching.
Best of luck.
Good luck, Baylee.
Good luck, Baylee.
Good luck, Baylee.
I wish you very good luck, Baylee.
Best of luck to you, Baylee.
I hope this helps you, Baylee, and good luck.
Good luck to you.
Baylee, I hope you have a long and productive career. Music's been a wonderful choice for me, so I hope it will be for you too. All the best.